Hello YouTube, Prepper Steve here, getting ready to give you some more knowledge nuggets. Um, Enjoying my breakfast this morning. Gotta love this stuff. And today what I want to talk about a little bit is preparing to prevent rule without law, or RWOL. And there's a lot of folks out there really concerned about rule without law. And so what is rule without law? Well, I'm going to get into that in just a minute, and I have got a little video for a visual aid to help out with that. But basically it's things when things get so bad that there is no emergency response. There's no law enforcement. And how does that come about? Well, it's surprisingly easy for that to come about. Just think for a minute about Hurricane Katrina. How much law enforcement do you think was going on the first 3 or 4 days after Hurricane Katrina? Not much. And anything can cause a situation like that. It could be a natural disaster, a flood, a hurricane, tornado, earthquake, even political uprisings. Say, for instance, the welfare checks don't go out 1 month. That could cause something like this. I mean, there's a lot of things that could bring rule without law into being. And so that's why a lot of folks want to be prepared so that they're not reliant on that help that's not ever going to come. And so with that being said, I've got this little video I want to put on and kind of give you an example of what rule without law looks like, and we'll talk a little bit more about how to prepare to prevent it. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so what is rule without law? Basically, we live in a system called America. And that system provides a lot of security for us. Law enforcement, fire departments, things like that. There's a lot of things within the system that provide us with a stable and secure environment. Now, what happens is if there's a situation, let's just say, for an example, a natural disaster or an outbreak or whatever. If something happens that's large enough that it stretches the system to its limits, then we end up with a collapse of the system, or rule without law. Now, as great as this system is, it is finite. And if you get a situation like, a Hurricane Katrina, for instance, and you get 2 or 3 of those kinds of situations that hit this country at the same time, and it's too much for the system to handle. The system breaks down. And what that does is that means there's no emergency response. You probably can't even get through on 911, let alone have anybody come out to help you. There's no law enforcement. They've just been stretched to the limit. They can't help everybody at the same time. There's not enough of them. So you end up with rule without law. For each man take care of himself, basically. And as you can see on the video, these are some of the things that happen when that comes about. Now, the first thing people do in a situation like that is they panic. That's real common. I mean, it's just natural when something like that happens, people panic. And when they do, people tend to do one of 4 things. Either they go out and act a fool, just destroying, looting, just mindless chaos, creating more and more mindless chaos. Or they get out. If something like that happens, they evacuate the area, they leave, they go somewhere where it's a safer and more secure environment. Or the third thing they can do is they put their head in the sand and just think that they're going to sit there and wait until help comes. And in a situation, where RWOL is taking place, that help may never come. And finally, the fourth thing that people may do is go out and get what they need by any means necessary, even if that means taking it from you. So that's kind of the four basic things that people fall into one of those four categories when the crap really hits the fan and you're in a situation in RWOL without law. So what you need to think about is which one of those categories are you going to be in. And especially if you live in an urban area, sometimes it's going to be hard to get out of there. As you can see coming up in this video here in a minute, you'll see some traffic of actual evacuations, and it can be difficult to get out. So you may be forced to sit there and ride it out for a while. So what you need to consider is, are you able to sit and ride it out for a while? And if so, how long can you survive? Now, you look at what's going on in these videos here. How much food do you think is going to be on the grocery shelf at your neighborhood grocery when this happens? Not much. How about other supplies, medical supplies, things like that? How much of that do you think is going to be available to you if something like this happens? So you need to prepare and get yourself set up to where you can survive a certain amount of time without having to rely on any outside help, any grocery stores, any law enforcement, things like that. And what I recommend is get yourself prepared to where you can survive a month without any help from anybody. That's not hard to do. I mean, it takes a little thought and you do have to put some time and energy into it, but it's not hard to accomplish. And the thing that scares people about RWOL without law is the fact that most people are not prepared. So they're not able to sit back and ride it out calm, cool, and collectively like somebody who is prepared would be able to do. In a very short amount of time, they're forced to go out and do things like you see on the video here. They're forced to go out and try and get what they need. And that's what scares a lot of people, and that's why a lot of people are preparing. But what you need to consider is, to prepare to prevent RWOL. And how you do that is not only by preparing yourself, but by getting other people involved in preparedness. And when you do that, when you get other people involved, your odds go way up. Your odds of being effective and surviving it go way up. And how you do that is simply by talking to people. Your friends, your family, your neighbors, especially if you live in an urban environment, say like an apartment building or something like that. Many hands make light work. So if you can get a group of people together and have that conversation, what if something happens? What if something like a Hurricane Katrina happens here? What are we going to do? And with a group of people getting prepared together, you increase your odds of survival. Plus, let's say you're in an apartment building, and if you can get most of the people in your apartment building on board and prepared to survive a month without any help from outside sources, then your apartment building is not going to be part of what you're seeing in the video here, because everybody's going to be able to be calm, cool, and collective because they've got what they need. They don't have to go out into this mess and try and get things and survive because they're already prepared to do that. And that's kind of the point of this video, is that you can prevent RWOL simply by preparing, but it doesn't work if you just do it alone. You have to have other people involved, and the more people you can help to get prepared, the more likely you are of being in a good position if something like this does happen. So that's just some food for thought, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. We'll go ahead and watch the rest of this video here. And this is kind of interesting. This is, like, you see, you know, how much food do you think is going to be left on the shelves at this store? And here's, you know, traffic. You know, are you trying to get out of a city in that kind of mess? You know, that's hard to do. So, you know, you might not be able to. What are you going to do if this is going on outside your front door? Are you going to go out in it? You know, while people are out doing the things that they do, destroying things just to be destroying them. You know, it's amazing how small-minded people react in situations like this. It gets really bad really quick. So you want to do everything you can to avoid that. And that's the end of that video. So let me go ahead and turn this off, and I'll be right back. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a little bit of a visual about what rule without law would look like. I mean, to a degree. And some key takeaways as to what to do about it is, number one, don't be the Lone Ranger. You know, don't try to do everything on your own. Involve your friends, family members, neighbors. You know, the more people that you can get, I guess, preparedness minded in your community, the better off you're going to be in the long run. I mean, just think about it. If everybody in the community has enough supplies that they can last for a month without having to go to the grocery store, then you don't have the runs on the grocery stores, and then you don't have, you know, so much of the violence and the looting and the rioting and things like that go on, which anytime you're in a rule without law situation, you're going to have those things regardless, because there's just an element of society that live for that kind of thing. So you are going to have that no matter what. But the more people that are prepared to deal with it, the less of a problem that's going to be. And, you know, sharing the load can do a lot for you. I mean, even if you put together, say, a committee in your apartment building or in your neighborhood or whatever, you know, maybe it's part of your neighborhood watch program. You have these conversations. You know, what do we do if something like that happens and we can't get emergency response? You know, what will we do? And, you know, divvy up the responsibilities. You know, have, you know, one person or one group that specializes in just, you know, securing the area, you know, working security for the apartment building or the neighborhood or whatever. Maybe another individual or another group is responsible for, you know, dealing with the food needs. Maybe someone else is with the medical needs. I mean, you can divvy these responsibilities out, and if you do it right and you put some structure behind it, it doesn't take a lot of time or effort. Like I say, maybe you already have a neighborhood watch program or some kind of community watch program in your area. This is a conversation that can easily be had in a meeting like that. And again, you know, follow up. You know, maybe once a month or, you know, once every quarter or something like that, you have a follow-up meeting with, you know, how are we looking? What have we done to this point? What do we need to do to better serve our needs if we're in that kind of situation? And I know a lot of people are afraid of that, because a lot of people don't want to have that conversation because they're afraid of sounding like a nut job or something, you know, talking about preparedness, because there's a little bit of a stigma that goes with it, you know, thanks to some of the TV shows and some of those wonderful things out there that make, you know, people who are being prepared look a little bit wacko. But if you have the conversation in a sensible manner and just approach it from, you know, just simple basic needs, you know, there are real threats out there. There are real things you need to be concerned about, you know, whether it be hurricanes or, you know, financial collapse or whatever. You know, if something happens to where we're in a situation where we can't get the emergency response that we're used to, how do we react? What do we do? How do we be prepared for that? Well, the way to do that is to be prepared, to have some security, have some food, some water, some medical supplies, people that know how to use those things, you know, and let people be involved. And again, many hands make light work. The more people you get involved, the less of a drain it has to be. So just let other people help you out. Uh, it doesn't have to break the bank to be prepared. You don't have to be a survivalist to be prepared. You don't have to build a compound where you can be self-sustained for eternity on your own food and vegetables and things like that. That you don't have to do that simply to be prepared. Simply getting yourself to a point where you have enough of the things that you need, like food, water, shelter, medical supplies. You have these things enough to last you a month, then you will probably be okay, because most of the things that could bring on a rule without law situation are things that could be dealt with. Even if we were hit by, say, 3 hurricanes at one time and the entire eastern seaboard gets wiped out, or something drastic like that, even something like that, things will eventually come back. There will eventually be some help and some assistance if you can make it to that point. And that's why I say, just try to get prepared to survive a month. And that's kind of the goal of this channel that I put together here. Is, if I can get everyone who watches this channel to get prepared to survive a month, then if something does happen, they're going to be in that much better shape, and there's going to be that much less of the craziness going on, like you saw in the videos, because preparedness brings that. So with that being said, I'll stop preaching now and get off my soapbox. I do appreciate you guys for tuning in and watching. Please, like and subscribe. Leave me any comments. If there's something you think I could be doing better or whatever, let me know, and I'll do my best. But thank y'all for watching.